Sup, Dad?
Welcome to This Dad Reads, a pop culture podcast on books, shows, games, and all things nerdy. What is going on, my friends? I hope everyone is doing well out there. I think I'm doing well, finally. Like I said on my last episode, 2025 has been a struggle for me and my family so far, between illnesses being passed around multiple times, injuries. It's been a lot. I finally feel at this point in March, mid-March as of this recording, we are finally crawling back to some semblance of normalcy. So I apologize. I feel like I've been a little bit absent on social media, but I also don't apologize for just like living life and having, normal adult struggles going on, just between work and family and life and injuries. It's just been a lot. So I've said that before. I don't want to harp on it, but it's just been a reality for me and my life and my family right now. But thankfully, I think we are crawling out of it. We are all doing well right now. I feel like my energy, even to read, has gone up more recently. Even in all during that time, you would think like, oh, you have, more downtime, or if you're not feeling good, you have more time to read. But guys, I didn't have energy to do anything. Like, I didn't want to read. I didn't want to watch anything. I didn't want to play any games. So it just felt really, really off. So thankfully, I am back here on the mic. I got my boy Casey78 with me. What's up, Casey? Yes, I am so glad that we are all feeling well as well. Thank you for joining me today. We don't have too much Star Wars stuff to catch up on or talk about, but I figured might as well have you here anyway, because you're my pal. I got to have someone to talk to. Yes, I know. You are not the only one that I'm talking to today. I am stoked to have another author join me on the podcast, and I will talk about that in a little bit, so that is to come. But I think we should just kind of get started off with all of the stuff that I've been reading and doing since our last episode. Does that sound good? I totally agree. Why don't you get that music queued up? So right off the bat, one of the books that I read was a graphic novel called Three Thieves, Volume 1, Tower of Treasure, written by Scott Chantler and published by my friends at Paper Cuts. Scott is the author that I'm actually going to be chatting with today a little bit later on the episode. He is a illustrator, an author, a creator, a writer. I was really excited to have him on the show and talk about especially his graphic novel Three Thieves, which has actually been around for a while. So I'm not going to go too much into it in detail right now, but it is kind of like a middle grade early reader graphic novel, but I think adults can really enjoy it as well. It's basically this kind of introduction into like a fantasy world, and you'll hear more about it when we chat, but he wrote this book based off an idea from his son when he was young, and it's just a really cool, really easy to read, fast book, but has some really deep themes and human elements in there. It focuses on this young girl and two of her kind of circus pals as they are kind of trying to do some trickster stuff, but then she has kind of like a deeper meaning behind her mission as she's trying to search for her missing twin brother. So the illustrations are really cool, and if you know me, I love myself a good illustration comic book, and so Three Thieves was definitely one of the books that I read and enjoyed, and the review of it is actually out on thisdadreads.com today, the day of this episode, and like I said, my chat with Scott is coming up in just a little bit. My Michael Connelly buddy read experience with my wife continues. We read a number of Connelly novels since my last episode. We read A Darkness More Than Night. We read City of Bones. We read Lost Light and The Narrows. So again, 4 more books read since my last episode. We're averaging about 4 books a month, which to me is surprising, but it's actually not, because these books are such page turners and they're so much fun. Continuing on that journey, and we are almost at the point where the Lincoln Lawyer is going to intersect. So that's basically what started our whole reread journey, is we read the Lincoln Lawyer, and then I was like, let's go back and read all the Bosch books. So the Bosch reread epic Michael Connelly buddy read saga continues. That's been super fun. I also read Happy Head by Josh Silver. I read/listened to it thanks to my friends at Delacorte Press and Penguin Random House Audio. This is a book that came out last year, I believe, and it's a young adult book, and it's based around this concept that there's this mysterious system out in the woods. I don't want to say system, but it's a mysterious like kind of organization that cherry picks youngsters who they think are struggling in happiness, and it's basically a system that is designed to help troubled youths find the happiness that they need, but all is not what it seems. There's kind of like deeper, darker elements to it, and it follows this one main character who is kind of going through his own journey of discovery, and how he's trying to like find what makes him truly happy, and then kind of battling against this like evil organization. I didn't love this book, in all honesty. It was kind of a struggle for me to get through. I just don't really feel like it was kind of my vibe. I thought maybe because there was like a dark, mysterious element to it that I would enjoy it more. But I think it was a little bit more just in this main character's head, and I just wasn't really intrigued by the story, in all honesty. This is part of a duology. The second book in this duology is called Dead Happy, and that came out in February. So I'm not going to read that one just because it wasn't my vibe. And guys, I'm kind of in my like DNF era. Like I've DNF'd more books in this year than I have in a long time. And if I'm not vibing with books, I'm just not going to finish them. So super thankful that Delacorte Press sent me this book to check out. I'm always thankful when publishers want to work together, but at the end of the day, if it wasn't for me, it's not for me. So if you like kind of a mysterious YA book, I would definitely say check out Happy Head, read some other reviews of it online. I'm not going to be reviewing it. I'm just chatting about it here on the show as a book that I read. But again, that's by Josh Silver. It's called Happy Head. Another graphic novel that I read from my friends at Paper Cuts is called Children of the Phoenix, Volume 1, The Eye of the Storm by Oscar Kallner and Carl Johnson. This is a book that I actually published a review on recently on thisdadreads.com. So if you are on my website, it's one of my most recent reviews. This one is a graphic novel as well, but I will say it's more of a novel with like graphic elements interspersed. It's really cool. It feels like a comic book. It feels like a traditional graphic novel, but it's mainly a chapter book with like some really fun illustrations interspersed. This book was translated from Swedish by Paper Cuts, and I really appreciated how they kept a lot of the Swedish kind of cultural elements in there. The kids still live in Sweden. You can tell that the names and some of the locales are very, indicative of that region. But basically, I got Skeleton Crew vibes from this book. And so if you are a family, a parent who has young kids who really enjoyed Skeleton Crew like my family did, this is a really cool book because it basically features these two kids who one evening their parents kind of get in an argument and their mom basically doesn't come back home, and kind of chaos ensues, and then they get picked up by like an alien spaceship. They find out some secrets about their mom that they didn't know before, and these kids get whisked away onto this like galactic adventure. And so after volume 1, these kids are on their way. And like I said, I really got Skeleton Crew vibes because the main characters are two young kids and they are just kind of whisked away on this like mysterious, fun, adventurous story. So again, it's called Children of the Phoenix. It's really fun. Like I said, my review is on my website, and so I definitely recommend it if you are either just a fan of like kind of fun, adventurous sci-fi stories, but also if you're a parent looking for something to engage with your kids with. So those are all the books that I read since my last episode. I am currently reading Oathbringer, which is the third novel in the Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson. I am taking my sweet time with that one because it is long, and I am reading it concurrently with like a number of other books. Some of those other books being Sunrise on the Reaping, the newest Hunger Games novel that just came out by Suzanne Collins. Like I said, my wife and I are still reading Michael Connelly books. We are currently on The Closers right now. And thanks to Penguin Random House Audio, I am listening to an audiobook of Shadow Man, which is a true crime story about like this crazy killer and how the FBI kind of figured out how to do profiling back in the 70s. And some other books that are on the docket are Star Wars The Acolyte Wayseeker by Justina Ireland. I just got the digital arc of that in my inbox recently from Random House Worlds. I am stoked to dive back into the world of The Acolyte. This book takes place a number of decades before the events of The Acolyte, so while it's not technically a High Republic novel, it's still set in the High Republic era, so I'm really excited to dive into that. Michael Connelly has a brand new kind of police thriller coming out in May called Nightshade, which I, first of all, am stoked to be chosen to be part of his street team, so I was given early access to that book, but I'm kind of biding my time because I really want to savor it. I don't want to read it too far before it comes out. That comes out May 20th, so that's on the docket. And in terms of games, I have not been playing a ton of games recently, like I said, but some of that have been in our collection recently. One of them is called Happy Camper by Maestro Media. It's like a Donald Duck game, and it's him and his nephews, Huey, Dewey, and Louie, and Webby. They're kind of going on like a camping trip, and it looks like a really fun kind of adventure game. We haven't dove into it too much yet, but I will be making a video promoting that on my socials coming out probably before this episode, so excited to play that one at some point. I also picked up the game Ascension. It is a deck building game because I'm just loving all deck building games right now. So that was one I purchased on my own. It is actually Ultra Pro, who makes sleeves for cards, is one of the people who produced this game. It's been around for a really long time, but it's another kind of deck building game, but has a different kind of play style to it. I've been playing the mobile game, which I'm not a big mobile gamer, but it actually taught me how to play the game, and I picked up. It's their 10th anniversary edition that kind of they released recently. There's tons of expansions for it, but I'm hoping me and my cousin can play that soon because he's my deck building player buddy. So I'm excited to be playing more of Ascension. And in terms of other media that is coming up, the last season of Bosch Legacy on Amazon Prime Video is coming out soon. I actually, again, was given early access thanks to being on the Michael Connolly Street team. So more of my thoughts on the last season of Bosch Legacy will be coming very soon. And then, of course, for my Star Wars people, Casey, we are so stoked and ready for Andor Season 2 that will be coming. I definitely will have watched however many released episodes will be out by the time my next episode is recorded, so I'm very excited to dive back into that world. I don't know if my rewatch is going to happen, in all honesty. I really want to do it, but I have a lot of other stuff going on, so if that doesn't happen, it won't be the end of the world. But again, Andor Season 2 coming, and I cannot wait for that. Woo. Well, that was all the kind of like media that I've been engaging with recently and stuff that I have on the docket. But something else that is on the docket is actually an event. So during the time of, the illnesses of 2025 that me and my family experienced, it was my wife and I's 19th wedding anniversary, and we had plans to just kind of get away to, the Monterey area in California. That had to get canceled, but we are rescheduling our trip. We're not going to go to Monterey. We're actually going to go to the LA Times Festival of Books, which is taking place at the USC campus in Los Angeles the last weekend in April. So I probably won't be able to talk about that until my May episode of the podcast, but still, I love having something to look forward to, especially an event like this. This I've never been to before. It's a completely free event. There's a ton of different panels happening over the 2 days down there. Some of them are ticketed, and I think there's a small fee for some of the tickets, but that's okay. But basically, it's like a book lover's dream. Like, the LA Times hosts this epic book festival, and there's a lot of authors from different genres, and there's tons of things going on. So I have like our whole docket going. I'm really excited because there's like cooking demos going on. So Roy Choi is doing a cooking demo. There's like a Top Chef panel with Tom Colicchio and the host of the Top Chef show doing like a presentation, which is, we love Top Chef. That's one of our favorite shows. And Mamrie Hart, who's been a big YouTube personality that I've been following and listening to forever. She has a new cookbook coming out. She's doing a cooking demo, so hoping to check that out. Also, John Chu, the director of Wicked, has like a book that he wrote, and he'll be doing a panel there, so we're going to try to check that out. Like, Ransom Riggs is going to be there, Chuck Wendig is going to be there, so I'm hoping to get a number of, books signed by authors that I've enjoyed and sit on a whole bunch of panels and just kind of like nerd out with book friends, and so I'm really excited about that. Again, I've never been. I'm hoping to run into some, social mutuals out there in LA, so definitely something that I'm looking forward to. All right, Casey, I think we're going to take a quick break. Let's gather ourselves and make sure that we're ready to chat with Scott after the break. Sound good? We'll see you guys after the break. This episode is brought to you by Inkstone Books, an independent online bookshop specializing in signed and special edition fantasy and science fiction books. Plus, their quarterly subscription features signed and numbered special editions of the best new science fiction fantasy books on the market, all delivered worldwide. Inkstone carries books from some of the most popular authors like Travis Baldree and Christopher Paolini. Plus, they have nonfiction and graphic novels too. Head over to inkstonebooks.com and check out everything they have to offer. And just for this Dad Read listeners, use code TDR5 to save 5% off your next order. That's TDR5 at inkstonebooks.com to receive 5% off your next order. So what are you waiting for? Go find your next beautiful addition to your bookshelf at inkstonebooks.com. Joining me today is creator of critically acclaimed graphic novels Squire and Knight, Bix, and Two Generals. His work has been nominated for multiple Eisner Awards. He's been selected for Best American Comics, and his work Three Thieves, which we will be discussing today, won the Joe Shuster Award for Best Comic for Kids. It's writer and cartoonist Scott Chantler. Welcome to the show, Scott.
Hey, thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Yeah, you're very welcome. You're one of the first well, I've had comic book writers on the show, but I think fully like cartoonist, illustrator, writer. That's like congrats. Like it's the first time for the This Dad Reads podcast.
Oh, cool. I'm a control freak, so I have to
I love it.
I have to do it all.
I love it. I love it. Well, this is the first time we've met and talked, and I've read Three Thieves. I've read one of your books, but I just want to get to know a little bit more about you. Why don't you? It's kind of like, a job interview situation. Why don't you just introduce yourself to the audience? What do you do? Where do you live? Just let us get to know you a little bit.
Well, I'm Scott Chantler. I'm a longtime comics creator. I've been in the business probably close to enough to 25 years to round it off and call it 25 years. Um, I have yeah, 15 published graphic novels, a mix of stuff from kind of historical biography to uh, kids fantasy like Three Thieves, which we'll be talking about. And, all kinds of things in between. I live in Stratford, Ontario, Canada,
All
which
right.
it's about, for those wondering, it's about 2 hours southwest of Toronto. Nice little town that's famous for its world-class Shakespearean theater festival, and also as the birthplace of Justin Bieber. So,
Wow. Two legends. Yeah.
so we got that going for us. Shakespeare and Bieber.
Uh-huh. Great pair.
Yep.
That's awesome. I just have to say too, Scott, after reading Three Thieves, the first volume, and like stalking slash researching you on social media, in preparation for this talk, I love your art style. Like I am a huge fan of like cartoon style art. Like I grew up a Disney fanatic. I loved Batman animated series. I have a whole shelf dedicated to Batman animated series. And so I just have to say, like, first
Nice.
of all, like your style is right up my alley. I love it so much. I want to know, like, who were you influenced by as, a maturing young man in your childhood? Like, what is nostalgic for you? And then what continues to influence you today in what you do?
You actually mentioned one of them just now, Batman the Animated Series from the 90s.
The
Bruce
best.
Timm was, yeah, certainly an influence. The look and feel of that show, yeah, it inspired a lot of cartoonists in my generation, I think. The big ones for me, though, are Will Eisner, who
Mm,
some of your listeners probably know, created the Spirit in the 1940s, and didn't create the graphic novel format, but really sort of helped popularize it in the late 70s and 80s. And it's just a brilliant, thoughtful cartoonist, great formalist, very expressive cartoonist. Um, yeah, I discovered his work when I was about 19, and his the kind of sophisticated stuff he was doing really helped keep me interested in comics, both as a reader and a creator into adulthood.
mm.
So he's kind of my go-to guy. Every day at the desk, I think to myself, what would Will Eisner do? When I'm stuck on something, which I often am. Jeff Smith is another big influence of mine. People probably know his Bone
Hmm.
graphic novels. That also kind of hit me in the 90s in its original form as a black and white indie comic, before the Scholastic color reprints of those. And he was just so different. Like, so much of 90s comic books were kind of just over rendered, just really just kind of cheap and kind of trashy. But his, Bone was so different than what anyone else was doing. He, comes from an animation background, so his stuff has that really nice, simple, elegant sense of design, and he has a really refined sense of timing. And that book really resonated with me. We talked about Bruce Timm already.
I'm glad you said that because I saw Bruce
Yeah,
Timm vibe so much in your work and like I
yeah.
love him. Oh, yeah.
Bruce Timm was a great reminder to all of us in a time when comics art was getting really kind of busy and over rendered like that. That you can draw simply. That
The
you can,
simplicity, yes.
yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Like as long as you got the forms down, you can just draw the forms and not, go to town
Yeah.
for hours and hours on surface detail.
Right. Did you watch
And
the newest Batman series that he helped produce?
I've
Did you
seen I've seen a few episodes of it. I haven't seen the whole thing,
Okay, you got to
but
finish it. It's so good.
yeah, it seemed really fun what I saw.
Okay, sorry, I interrupted you.
No, that's quite all right. I love that it's like actually set in the 30s and 40s and stuff.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, great look. Yeah, I don't know. In terms of other influences, like a lot of European artists, there's a cartoonist named Yves Chaland who I really admire and you know crib from constantly. But lots of people like Harvey Kurtzman's an influence. I'm kind of looking. I have a board in front of me
Oh.
right now with a bunch of my favorite artists on it, just as kind of inspiration slash to steal from. Alex Toth, another amazing French artist, Pierre Allery, David Mazzucchelli. Boy, yeah, I could just keep going all night.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
Yeah.
What was your my question, I'm curious, like what was your journey to like getting into comics? Like what introduced it to you first, and what has kind of kept you there for so long and into a professional career?
Yeah. So like as a comics reader, um, when I was a kid, I'm old. So when I was a little kid in the 70s, the Batman TV show from the 60s was
Yep.
still on afternoon TV every day, and I watched that religiously. So I don't really remember what my first comic book was or what exactly got
Okay.
me into it, but if it was anything other than Batman, I would be surprised. I'm
Yeah.
sure I knew who Batman was from the TV show and probably saw the comics in the, supermarket or, wherever and demanded that my mom get them for me. Certainly the first comic I can remember having was it was like one of those things that was packaged with a 45 record. Again, I'm
Okay.
I'm really dating myself here,
I love it.
but it was a Denny O'Neil, Neil Adams. It was the issue of Batman where they meet Man-Bat for the first time.
Oh,
And it came with a 45 that was like a dramatic reading of the comic with actors and a narrator and all that stuff. And that's certainly the first comic I can remember reading. And I can still hear the record in my head too as I talk about it. I'd love to get like at a convention or something one of these days. I got to try to track down that comic and the record
that'd be
because I would
amazing. I
I
was
would
gonna
love to
say,
hear it again.
yeah, I was gonna say, is
Uh,
that still in your collection?
no, no, I wish. And then so, as I got more like kind of 10 or 12, it was kind of the era of Conan the Barbarian from the Marvel Comics. DC Comics had a great series called The Warlord, which was really fun. I really loved all that fantasy stuff. I was a big Dungeons and Dragons nerd around that
Okay.
time. Kind of one of those. I'm about the same age as those um uh, what's the Netflix show?
Oh,
Um,
Stranger Things?
yeah, Stranger Things. Phew. I'm about the same age as those Stranger Things kids. So I was like, that was me in 1982, 83, is
Yeah.
in the basement rolling the dice. Um, and then, like I said, as I became an older teenager and into my 20s, I started discovering, alternative comics and older cartoonists and stuff like that. And that really, like the nice thing about comics is you can kind of grow with it a little bit, and there's a little something for everybody. Um, which is nice.
Yeah. How about your own like artistic style? Like, what, did someone see something in you, or did you kind of, because you loved comics and visual media so much, is that something you kind of just naturally gravitated to? Like, what was that like, going from like drawing for fun and then going
Yeah,
to a profession?
this is all I ever wanted to do.
Mm,
Uh, it was hard in the early 90s, right around the time I was finishing school and ready for a career, the bottom dropped out of the comics market so hard. There was a whole,
Hmm.
one of the distributors went out of business, and the kind of bottom dropped out of the whole, speculator scene for comic books, where, people would bag and board their comics hoping they'd be worth $1 million someday. And of course, most of them weren't worth the paper they were printed on. And it's kind of good that that died out, but it created certainly a, dip in terms of the comics market for a while, just as I was out there trying to start a career,
Ready
right?
to go. Yeah.
So like a lot of other people in my generation, I kind of did something else for a while. I started doing commercial illustration in the 90s and made a living that way. I drew a lot of safety and loss prevention posters for,
Oh.
like big companies like Walmart and stuff. Like you'd if you work at a store like that and you see the posters in the back room of the guy lifting with his legs with his back brace on, I probably drew that.
Okay. I feel
uh,
a comic series based on that guy somehow.
yeah, right. He's yeah, doing a lot of lifting and not hurting his back.
Yes.
Um, yeah, so that's what I did for a while. And that was close. It was getting paid to
Sure.
draw, which was nice, but it didn't really scratch that storytelling itch that I had. So I started a online webcomic on my website, which was not intended to get me into comics professionally. It was just a thing to, bring people to my website every day and scratch that itch, like I say. And I did that for a little while. And Jay Torres, who's a comics writer who some of your listeners may have heard of, was one of my readers. And he was already working in comics. And he ended up kind of bringing me in. He kind of discovered me. Uh, and he had a graphic novel he was pitching to Oni Press a million years ago. And he said, "Hey, you'd be a great artist for this." It was set in the early 60s. It was called Days Like This. It was about a girl group in the early 60s, loosely based on the Shirelles.
Okay.
And I love the period. I love music. He thought I would be a good fit for this book, and I was. And yeah, a month or two later, he got back in touch with me and was like, "I got a green light on that graphic novel, so
Wow.
you're in." So that was cool.
That's
And
awesome.
from there, him and I did another book together called Scandalous. And then I started pitching my own stuff because I had a relationship with Oni Press by that
Sure.
point. And I've been pretty busy since then.
And the rest is history.
Yeah.
That's great. You know what? As you were saying that, I just had a thought that if they ever did of that thing you do, like graphic novel interpretation, you'd be
Yep.
perfect for that. Like,
I love that movie.
same. Yes. Oh, I was just getting, I have a vision of like that whole cast in my mind.
Yep.
Uh, I want to switch a little bit because I know I'm a dad, you're a dad. I think your kids are a little bit older than mine, different, phase of child rearing. But
My kids are basically adults. They're 18 and 21.
okay, my daughter
So
thinks
yeah,
she is, and she's only 7.
there you
So
go.
not quite the same. But I'm really curious because I'm curious in terms of their interest level of what you do, like as a profession. And it's always my goal to like expose my kids to books and to media that is going to like make them think and open their eyes to the world. But I'm also like trying to always balance, like not forcing them to like the things that I like because I know that they're good. So I'm really curious. I've heard the gamut from creators who are parents about what the situation is like. So what has it been like for you?
Yeah, that's interesting. Like both my boys definitely grew up around books, just because, I'm their father and I,
Yeah,
I work in publishing and I, read a lot and I make books and, there were certainly books around. So, they're no stranger to them. But in that same respect, like the other side of that is they're also, maybe we're a bit blasé about it. It's like, oh,
sure.
it's like another book. Nothing special about this. I don't know. Like both my boys read, not as voraciously as I do. Um, yeah, like I hope I did well with that. They're both still in school, so they're kind of,
Okay,
reading as part of school. I hope when they're done, and my older son is finishing college soon, this spring. I hope they will both continue to, read recreationally.
sure.
Like I'm gonna try to make them. They aren't so old that I can't just force them to do stuff. Um, yeah, both boys. My older son is he's in college for like construction engineering.
Okay,
He likes drafting. So he's not creative in the way I am. It's a little more technical, but it is still creative
still,
of sort. He's building stuff, right?
yeah.
He's making stuff, and that's cool. And you got to be smart to do that. And my younger son is looking at going to film school. He's
Okay,
looking at going into the film and media program at a college here in Canada, Sheridan College. So where I actually went for animation,
oh, nice.
my old alma mater. So yeah, he's kind of got a little bit more of the interest in visual storytelling and stuff that I have. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, I was just
Um,
curious, like, did they think what you did growing up was cool, or were they like, oh no, I don't want to do that, or it's just like, oh,
yeah,
that's
and it's
comics, like,
it's hard to tell. Like,
okay.
does anyone think their dad is cool? I don't know. And even if they do they tell you?
Oh, yeah, I was gonna say, would they ever admit it that
Would
they
they
thought
would they would they
that?
admit it to your face?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I think the boys, like they're both pretty laid back, which
Okay.
is nice. And they're like they're cool kids. But
Maybe both of us are still years away from having that sort of reflection of it's
yeah, yeah, maybe. Uh, yeah, like sometimes I wasn't even sure that what I do registers with the boys at all. But when my
sure.
younger son was little, my mom told me she was babysitting one time, and uh, and told me later that my younger son Mason, when he was very young, was trying to explain to her that like his dad is very famous.
Oh, that's
And
great.
yeah, it was pretty adorable.
That's
So
awesome. No, you don't
yeah,
understand. He draws comics. He's famous.
exactly. Yeah.
How do I explain this to you? Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk Three Thieves. That's mainly the reason that I have you on the show today.
Great.
This title has been around for a while now, like since 2010, I believe.
Yeah.
Tell me a
Yep.
little bit about the journey of this title and how it's kind of been given new life thanks to Paper Cuts, its new publisher.
Yeah, it's actually this was a perfect lead in just talking about my boys because when my older son was 3 years old, he went through a phase like a lot of kids go through where he was really into knights and castles,
Mm,
and he asked me if I could make a story with a castle in it, and like what parent could resist,
right?
right? That was his one requirement was that it had a castle in it. So if you have the first Three Thieves book and you open, you'll see that page 2 is a splash page of a castle.
Okay, love it.
It's just like, here you go, son. Here's your castle. And then I did whatever I wanted for the next 7 books.
After that.
Yeah. But yeah, it's great. Like if you're a writer to get that kind of a prompt, right? You start thinking
Yeah,
about, like, who lives in the castle and what's their problem and what are they doing to solve it and who is against them and why. And yeah, pretty soon you've got a story or, 7 stories in my case. Um, it was a good time to be pitching like a kid's fantasy book because Bone, which we also talked about earlier, those color editions that Scholastic put
mm,
out in the early 2000s, were selling millions of copies, and every book publisher was looking for something like it. So it turned out to be a really good time to be pitching that series. So yeah, I did the 7 books, and over about 9, 10 years, the last one came out in 2016. and had a bit of a falling out with the original publisher and kind of got the rights back and
Hmm.
decided that I would shop them around other places, my agent and I. And yeah, this opportunity with paper cuts just kind of fell out of the sky almost. My editor there, Adam Walenta, who's a good dude, started working there as an editor, and like I think in his job interview, they asked him, "Well, what kind of books would you want to do with us?" And he said, "I'd like to do books like Scott Chandler's Three Thieves books." And so shortly after that, he emailed me and said, really love your stuff. We'd love to have a relationship with you. Pitch us something. And I told him, well, like the rights to the Three Thieves books are available. Do you want to just do that? And so he was all over that. And yeah, it's really great to have these books coming back into print because there are seven of them. That's half of my backlist. And
Sure.
yeah, it's wonderful to have them rolling out. The first book just came out, as you know, and that's great to see again. And the nice thing is the series is already finished, so there's not going to be a huge wait between books for people.
Right.
Second book is coming in June, third book is coming in October, and we're just going to do one book a season like that until all seven are back out there, which will be wonderful.
That's so cool. And there's no deadline pressure on your part, right?
Exactly. The
Yeah.
work is done.
I know that the first volume has a couple like special editions, right? Like some behind the scenes stuff, and there's some interviews you have in there and some sketch art, which is a nice touch. So that's cool
Thank
to
you.
give people who've are jumping back in something else to look forward to.
Yeah, I really wanted, especially that first book. A lot of
Mm.
people already have it, so I wanted them to, give them a reason to pick it up and at least look at it again. But all seven books are going to have a back section of cool extras like that. That interview is just going to continue through all seven books, and as new characters appear, you'll see the original sketches of them, and it's
That's
going to be
fun.
cool.
That's
Yeah.
very fun. Well, I thought Volume One is a great title for, I mean, obviously it has been for a long time, but especially for young readers who want to dip into fantasy and adventure stories. Like, I'm always, weighing that question as a parent, like, what is appropriate for my kid at this age? And that's always changing. But I really think that this is an amazing title for adults too. Like, it's so fun. But I think it's just like a great introduction into like a fantasy adventure series. There's a trio of characters that head up the story, or at least start out the story, and you said more are going to come, but um, they are like all the best things I feel for like fantasy tropes. Like, can you tell us a little bit about the characters and what makes them so special?
Sure. Our main character, Dessa, is the acrobat in a medieval traveling circus troupe. And she has two sidekicks. One of them is Topper, who's like a little blue guy called a Norker. He is the circus troupe's juggler, but also kind of moonlights as a pickpocket, which is fun. He's a fun character. And there's also a big purple guy who's the circus strongman, and he's this kind of gentle but tough older brother, protective older brother type. We'll see as the series goes along. And yeah, they are the three thieves. In the first book, they're caught trying to rob the queen's treasury for reasons that people can read the book and find out on their own.
Yes.
And the queen sends, and they escape. And the queen sends her kind of group of hand-picked knights called the Queen's Dragon out to, chase them down and bring them back. I talked earlier about TV shows I loved when I was a kid, like Batman.
Mm.
Another 60s show that was all over afternoon TV when I was a kid was The Fugitive.
Oh, okay.
So I
Yeah.
always loved that thing of like being chased and while also chasing someone else. In the TV show, he's being chased by, the police while also, chasing down the guy who murdered his wife. And in Three Thieves, while they're running away from these knights, Dessa has been looking for her long lost twin brother, and there's a whole backstory there that kind of forms an overarching story for the series. And so while they're on the run, they're keeping an eye out for the twin brother. Uh, a structure I just lifted entirely from The Fugitive.
I love it. I'm so glad you mentioned some like cinematic influences because I definitely saw in multiple panels and pages like so many subtle like cinematic notes, like frames that are like different shots or like slow scenes with like just subtle eye movements. And I think for like a kid's title, I love that because it's teaching them to like really pay attention to those small moments, right? It's not just all about the big pow
Yeah.
bang. I thought it was very, very effective, and I'm excited to have my son read this book too because I think it was so cool.
Thanks very much. I mean, I'm really always going for, even though it's a, quote unquote kids
Yeah.
title, I am always just I feel like just because the audience includes children, you don't
Hmm.
dial down the craft. If anything, you dial it up.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, even with my work that is aimed at younger readers, like you say, I think, a lot of parents respond, and that's great. I don't really think about demographics when I'm writing and drawing. I kind of think that's the marketing department's job.
Mm.
I just want to tell a great story and and cast a wide net. And so
Mm.
I want the kids, I want the parents, I want the grandparents, I want the family dog. I want like I want everybody reading these books and to find something for them in it, which
Sure.
and you talk about timing and stuff like a lot of my experience is like I majored in film, and then I went on and specialized at the animation college I was talking about for a while. So that really kind of that training I found has
Mm.
translated to comics really well. Um, yeah, I'm always looking for those small subtleties, those little bits of timing that again I think readers of all ages really respond to. Hopefully,
Sure. Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, I think they do. And I could tell, like, I'm a huge cartoonist. Like, I thought I was going to be a Disney animator when I was young. And even
cool,
reading this book before I looked into who you were, I was like, this guy had to be into like animation or something because it's
yeah,
almost like storyboard, like you're storyboarding, like
yeah,
basically, like
yeah,
illustrating it and writing a story to it, which is so
yep,
cool. And I think being like, I'm an 80s kid, I was born in 83. So, like, I was raised on a lot of the, like, Jim Henson of it all, the
sure,
Don Bluth, even like some of the stuff that for kids was like dark and scary. And so I
yeah.
really feel like you balance that well. I wouldn't say this is dark or scary, but I feel like it still challenges younger readers. It doesn't dumb it down, like you said, and it encourages them to like level up. And so
Yeah.
I think that's really evident here.
When I was a kid, I always liked stuff that felt like it was just above my head.
Yes,
I certainly didn't like anything that felt like it was talking down to me.
right.
And so I try to never do that. I try to, give audiences of all ages really, the benefit of the doubt in terms of, what they'll be able to perceive and understand. And, kids are more perceptive than they often get credit for, I
Yep,
think. So.
yep,
I always figure, yeah, give him some credit going in.
exactly.
Yeah,
Well, your 3-year-old son at the time gave you a great creative brief to start with, but I would assume still starting a new book or starting a new series based off one idea is relatively challenging. Like, what was your kind of strategy going into this book when you were kind of setting things up? Like, did you always want it to have like to be like a trio? And you did mention, being influenced by things like The Fugitive, but like, I guess like where did kind of the seeds of that idea start to really grow?
yeah. I mean, it's hard to remember now. It's going back a ways. I know I had those original characters in my sketchbook from the time I was kind of in university or so. Particularly like Topper and Fisk, the two sidekicks, the two kind of creature sidekicks. I've had versions of them in my sketchbook going back to the very early 90s. And there was always a kind of a swashbuckling main hero with them.
Mm,
They were always sidekick characters. Uh, and you could tell it was the 90s because it was often like a dude with a goatee or something, Um, but it wasn't until I started developing the first Three Thieves book that it became a girl and became Dessa.
Okay.
Um, that just it struck me as a little bit more interesting. There was something
Mm.
about it that wasn't really working, and I thought, well, what if we make this swashbuckling main character a girl? And that opened up a lot of things. Like a lot of things clicked when I made that decision. Yeah, and in terms of just developing the story and where it would go, like I say, I knew I wanted it to be a chase. I knew that the main characters would also be chasing somebody else. Um, I don't want to get too much into the overarching plot of the series because the next six books are still rolling
Yes.
out, and I don't want to spoil anything for anybody. But that kind of overarching story took a while to shape, but mostly my original editor, after we had done the first book, said very wisely, like, if we're going to do this series, I want you to plot out each book. Like, I want at least a springboard plot for each of the seven books. And I did that. And I found a lot of the kind of shape of the overall story through that exercise, which was nice. With this first book that we're talking about, I was flying blind a little bit. I was, I had certain things I wanted to set up. I wasn't exactly sure how they were going to pay off, but I threw a bunch of balls in the air with the first book and hoped they would come down somewhere interesting, and and they did. I think we'll see what people think when they get to the later books.
Yeah, I'm glad you said
But
that because I really like this book too because I feel like even if you could probably go find maybe I don't know if you could find the other issues of where they were out before, but
yeah, they're
okay,
hard to find because they've
okay,
been out of print for a while. I was getting emails a couple times a week from people being like, "Where do I find
where
the
can
Three
I
Thieves
find
books?"
it? Yeah.
And like a lot of people seem to own like library copies that were either stolen from
Stolen.
libraries or that libraries, got rid of because the covers were torn or
Oh, okay,
I've
gotcha.
seen I've signed a lot of library copies over
Oh,
the
that's
last few
fun.
years that
That's
people
funny.
managed to get their hands on.
That's so
Uh,
funny.
so yeah, I'm so glad they're coming back because people will stop asking me that now.
Here's a link to go buy it. I really
Exactly.
enjoyed too for someone like my son who's like just voracious. Like he will go book after book after book. I like that volume one. It ends it, but you definitely want to know what happens next. But it's not so cliffhangery that you're like I need the next one right now. But so it gives you something
Yeah.
to look forward to, I would say.
I wanted each book to kind of stand alone as an episode, as
Sure.
a little adventure on its own, but to also be part of an overall,
Yeah.
you know. So, if you do read all seven in order, you get a little payoff at the end. But
Yeah.
yeah, each book does have a beginning, middle, and an end, and has its own, yeah, has its own little resolution to a thing that has like
Nice.
an episode of television,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Go figure.
yeah.
I'm excited. I'm excited to keep reading them. Like, I hope I want to keep reading them and find out what happens next. So that's cool. You
Good.
mentioned having people sign copies.
Yep.
I want to. I'm assuming you attend conventions and stuff like that. So when people start getting their hands on these new paper cuts editions, is that something you are doing often? Do you do signings? Like, where are you out and about in the world?
Yeah, I've done a couple of store signings just recently. Um, I'm often at conventions and festivals and things like that when, there's a new book out, and there's going to be a lot of new books out in the future with these new editions rolling out. Um, yeah, travel and stuff, particular to the US, is a little weird right now for us Canadians. Um, I,
Understandably.
yeah, I'm not. I've got a few offers to appear at American conventions, and we're gonna see how that works out.
Okay.
It's a little touch and go, but certainly here on the Canadian side of the border, I'm often at things. You can
Okay.
you can certainly catch me at stuff. But yeah, I've done a lot of, and also school visits and library talks, and I've been doing this a while and have tried to make myself as visible as possible.
If readers pick up Three Thieves, maybe it's their first book they read from you, and they want to get more from you. Like, uh, tell us about some more of your other work, or is there work that you are working on now that they can look forward to that's maybe still to come out? What else can people read of yours that if they like Three Thieves, they might want to pick up?
Well, there are a lot of other things, is the nice thing. I have a more recent fantasy series for kids that came out over the last couple of years from First Second. It's called Squire and Knight. There are two books, and yeah, it's a fun little thing about a squire who's a kind of he reads. He's like us.
Okay,
He's a smart kid
sold.
who's into books and all this stuff. The knight that he serves is this big obnoxious blowhard. And the kind of gist of the series is that the squire does all the thinking and the real work and solves all the puzzles and bails the knight out of trouble, and then the knight takes the credit. And it's yeah, they're a lot of fun, and I'm really proud of them. So I think it's very much in the spirit of Three Thieves in terms of a little bit of action, a little bit of humor, all the stuff we're talking about. Three Thieves fans would definitely recognize those books and vice versa. If you're a fan of those books and getting a little older, my more adult skewing work, the book I'm best known for here in Canada is called Two Generals,
Hmm.
which is about my grandfather's experiences in the Second World War. So, and it's actually taught in high schools and universities and stuff across the country here, and it's
Cool.
crazy. Um, but that's obviously a really personal work for me. That's a different vibe from Three Thieves, but something that may be of interest to people. And a book that I'm very proud of that not enough people know about is called Bix, which is about a jazz cornetist, piano player, composer from the 1920s named Bix Beiderbecke, who was a real guy and lived a very short and tragic but interesting life. I did this very long experimental graphic novel about him that was trying to kind of picture music visually and make
Mm.
all kind of interesting links between the rhythm of music and the rhythm of his life. And
Mm.
unfortunately it had the this kind of twist of fate that it came out about 5 weeks into the first COVID lockdown, and
Mm.
like stores weren't even open.
Right.
So most people don't even know that this is a book that exists and that they can read. But if you really want to see my most kind of challenging adult work, go find yourselves a copy of Bix. That's one that's definitely more for the parents. But I would appreciate you going and checking it out because not enough people have.
Nice. If people are interested in learning more about you or finding your books or getting to connect with you, where can they do that? Like online? Where's the best place to find you online?
Sure. I'm kind of weaning myself off social media lately, like a lot of people are. I'm still on Instagram. I'm at Scott Chantler on Instagram. I'm giving Blue Sky a try. I don't love it, but I'm trying to. I'm Scott Chantler on Blue Sky as well. But a place where you can reliably find me is just my website, which is scottchantler.com. And I just very recently revamped it completely. And I have a blog again. It's like 2005. My website is now also a blog. I figure if people are just abandoning social media, which they seem to be, that is a place where you will always be able to find me. And there's no algorithms, there's no billionaires, there's no AI scraping, there's no Nazis, there's no you know
Sounds beautiful.
yeah, my website will be a nice safe place where you can always get news about my books and career
Excellent.
if we get separated out there in cyberspace. So there will always
Excellent.
be at least that website.
Yeah, and I will definitely link all of those things in the show notes of this episode if anyone is interested in easily finding those things. I have one question that came up as I'm pretty much wrapped up, but I had another
Okay.
question because we've talked about music quite a bit. Are you a musician? Like, do you play or? sing or do music at all?
I play the guitar badly,
Okay.
and and I've been trying lately to learn blues harmonica,
Okay.
but just as a goofing around kind of hobby
Okay.
thing. I'm a big music fan,
Okay. Okay.
and so that's good. And as we've discussed, like kind of timing and rhythm and stuff is very important to my work. So I do, on top of all the cartoonists and TV shows and stuff we've talked about, music is also a big influence. Like
Mm,
I really think about my books very musically.
it
Yeah.
reads that way. I was just gonna
Yeah.
say, like, it feels very musical in tone.
Thank you. I'm glad you picked up on that because
I
it's
can hear
something
the
that.
like minstrel guitar like playing, in the
Yeah.
background,
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I yeah, really appreciate you saying so because some of the projects, like, before I even have a plot, I will know what the beat
Mm,
is. Like
yeah,
I'll know the rhythm of the thing and how I want it to feel. And
I
I
love that.
fill in the details later. So
That's awesome. I was just thinking like concept album ever, like that'd be so cool. Like some things would lend itself to that. Like, having,
yeah,
I don't know,
yeah,
music
man.
accompaniment would be so cool. You gotta make a 45 to put with your book.
Right. So yeah, full circle.
Finals back in. See?
I
Well,
love it.
Scott, it has been an absolute pleasure getting to meet you and talk with you and honestly like nerd out. I have nerd out sessions on the show all the time, but I feel like kindred spirit here just with a lot of our similar things, backgrounds and influences. So thank you so much for joining. It has been so much fun and please check out Three Thieves if you have not done so.
Yeah, man, it's been great. Thank you so much.
I want to thank Scott again for being available and chatting about his book, Three Thieves, Volume 1, Tower of Treasure. Definitely check it out wherever you get your books from Paper Cuts. Also, thanks to Paper Cuts, they sent me a really nice just thank you box full of like goodies and books and bookmarks and tchotchkes. So, especially if you are a parent like myself with raising young kids, they are a really great publisher that focuses on books and nerdy stuff for younger readers. So I can't recommend them enough. Their books and stuff is available anywhere books are sold. I will link their website in the show notes of this episode. But super thankful for them, and I had a great time talking with Scott. I feel like we are kindred spirits in so many ways, and I want to thank him again for staying up extra late in Canada, where he's from. So thanks for that. All right, guys, that is it for this month. I hope that everyone stays healthy. Again, like I always say, there's tons of books to read, things to watch, and games to play. So I will see you in my next episode. Thank you so much for listening. For more of my content, visit my website at thisdadreads.com for full book reviews, interviews, and articles. Follow me on socials at thisdadreads on Twitter and Instagram. This Dad Reads, the podcast, is produced by Aravis Industries and me. Special thanks to my editor, Jeremy Tuttle, and to Coma-Media for the use of their song Bounce. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe on your podcast platform of choice and leave me a 5-star review. It really helps. Catch you next time.